This is from USA Today. Got a hold of this. This is in Asheville. Play this clip.
This is our road. Gone.
This, I think, was 40 or somewhere around there. I mean, this is like
The house.
just massive flooding.
Oh my God, a whole house or piece of a house.
Yep.
Thinking of all of the people in the Southeast right now.
And the numbers right now are just over 100. We just really don't
About
have
time.
it. Here is Matt Strackbein, the letter hack, lives in Greenwood, South Carolina, and he wanted me to read this. I'm going to read it. I don't think he had much of an opportunity to get information out at all. My town of Greenwood, South Carolina lost power last Friday at 5:30 a.m. We heard late Sunday we won't get it back until this Friday at 11:45 p.m. We hope they're buffering that projection to limit people's expectations. Either way, we're doing well and prepared to shelter in place as long as needed. We don't have a lot of news from the inside here, but it seems that very dry conditions and little rain this year, combined with a sudden influx 7 inches in a single night and the strongest winds I've seen in my life from Helene, uprooted hundreds of trees, knocked down as many power lines. Between trees still blocking roads and intense flooding, crews are still working to get access so they can even begin repairs. We ventured out today before sunrise to get gas and more supplies and saw more than one parking lot filled with utility worker vehicles and semi-trailers marked lodgings. These workers and volunteers are effing heroes. We live in a food desert where dollar stores and fast food restaurants have taken over the town. There are 30,000 people with a 30% poverty rate in Greenwood, so one could assume a good number of people don't cook at home or at least rely on microwaves. That creates an even worse disaster when the power goes out statewide, not to mention the gun violence that's been reported in long gas station lines. We heard at least one person was killed at the pumps in a neighboring county. Thanks to capitalism and climate change, we're living in increasingly hostile environments. This will become normal, and it's up to everyone to adapt starting now. Thanks to my wife, we live a fairly sustainable lifestyle already. But that's not the case for most. Sorry for any typos. I'm writing this by phone and in haste. We're only using devices to update family and friends, and I consider the MR community both. See you on the other side. Left is best. Letter hack. Just to give you a sense of what's going on in, in those parts down there. There's not a lot of information coming out. And just to be clear, because there's so much BS being we're in the middle of a campaign, and so we know already the propensity of at least the vice president nominee to lie, apparently, about things, to make up stories to get media attention or whatever, however he adjusts it. Biden approved major disaster declarations for Florida and North Carolina on the 28th. That was Saturday. FEMA was on the ground Sunday in Georgia. FEMA has more than 800 staff deployed supporting the states affected by the hurricane. Declarations are still in effect for Tennessee, South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama. The Homeland Security Surge Capacity Force has been activated. The Urban Search and Rescue deployed a total of 24 teams with over 1,300 people to affected states, equipped with swift rescue capabilities. There's more, obviously. But this is people will point to, like, in the 1800s, Asheville flooded, and therefore saying, like, oh, proof this is not a function of climate change. First off, the idea that the weather can overcome towns in the 1800s and river surges can overcome the town in the 1800s is a very different matter than overcoming a town in the year 2024. Because theoretically, right, like, all of this stuff has been designed for the way much of what Asheville was designed after those floods
Right.
was anticipating what the extreme flooding capacity was of these areas. But because of the nature of changing climate change, the real problem for climate change is not necessarily that the earth is going to blow up. The real problem is that we have been living as a society under one set of assumptions. We have built cities, we have populated areas, we have population levels that all assume the earth is one way. And it is changing so quickly that we're not going to be able to catch up. And so that means death, destruction of human-built, societies, municipalities, maybe, I don't know, states, but certainly, some small countries.
Yep.
And populations. And
it's not that we get more beachfront property, as Donald Trump says, which in fact, actually the land mass sinks. So it's more water, less beachfront property, and it's not the one of the greatest scams of all time, as he referred to climate change over the weekend, because we know there's no ambiguity about how Helene got that intense. It's because the Gulf of Mexico is warmer than it is traditionally, or than it had been in previous decades. And we're going to see more intense and more frequent storms. This is not a mystery at this point. And the Democrats are insufficient on this, but my God, we don't have enough time to go through another Republican administration where we're baby drilling everywhere. There at least needs to be some movement and mitigating this kind of stuff, because it's getting worse and worse.
Meanwhile, folks in Florida want to nationalize the federal, the insurance pools, essentially, that support structures and houses that are close to the shores. Now, the feds already have a program for that, but they want to sort of make it even more federalized. And in principle, I have no issue with that. But in the same way that you get federal highway funds if you maintain a 55 mile per hour speed limit in certain levels of density, et cetera, et cetera. I think it's also legitimate to say, well, maybe you should have an income tax in Florida. Or, as long as you are collecting money and you're putting money into it, or maybe you should not be putting out documents where you have literally outlawed the words climate change. You can't both say we need help with this and it doesn't exist simultaneously. So we'll see. I mean, I think at the very least there's a political opportunity there. We're not going to see anything happen on that in the short run, in the next 6 weeks. But there it is. I want to also say this: Biden asked Cooper, governor of North Carolina, "Do you want a visit from me?" And Cooper's response, quite sensibly, is no.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to be sending 1, 10, 20, 50 state troopers to go do a security detail for some dude who's not going to do anything because they can't.
Cooper does not want to be photographed with Biden either.
Well,
Cooper's running for the Senate. I mean,
that aside.
Yeah.
That aside, I'm not talking just the political considerations. I'm talking about the resource considerations.
Yeah.
So, we were talking why wouldn't Harris go to Georgia? If Trump is going, it's because at the end of the day, understand, if you're someone who's going to draw local resources away from saving people short term, you're not going to do that. I don't know what Harris is, and I don't know what how urgent or extreme or emergency the situation is in Georgia, but certainly in the context of North Carolina at this point, I would imagine that every available emergency worker, police officer, whatever they can spare, is heading to that region to try and help. So, Yeah, as Jesse Firewater says, our annual once-in-a-century storm.
Exactly. Yeah, and let's talk more about fracking and Harris's flip-flop. Thank you to the media for prioritizing the right things.
Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.